Iasi is one of the largest cities in Romania, located right on the border with Moldova. There have always been many Moldovans here, but with the onset of the war, Ukrainians have also arrived. As for those who were forced to flee from the southern regions of Ukraine through Moldova, Iasi is the nearest city in the European Union. Now, in winter, when there are power and heating outages in Ukraine, those who decided to wait a few months until spring have moved here. In today's episode, I will try to show you aspects of Romania that I did not cover in my video about Bucharest. I will try to find out how many emigrants there are in Romania and why their number is growing rapidly.
Sometimes I see more cars with our Novograd plates in the flow of traffic than with Romanian ones. For me, it's really a great luck to be in Romania. As long as it's not winter, we definitely won't move because there is heating here.
Today we will learn what the immigrants eat, how they react to Romanian traditions, and what language they use to communicate with Romanians.
Every person will respond to you in English, even the security guard in the supermarket or the person who pushes the carts. But in Ukraine, that would be unthinkable. I have all these ozibuni.
What exactly is this, perhaps, maybe?
All the food is sour. They love sour flavors, not sweet. They went to Moldova for buckwheat.
When I found myself at a Romanian wedding, I realized that I was truly there.
Then we will see what conditions the refugees live in here and what assistance they can expect.
The first time in my life when I wasn't the one offering money to a police officer, but he was the one telling me to take the money.
Well, there's nothing like giving you 300 euros in cash here. I can honestly say that it's not like that in Ukraine.
In addition, today we will also learn what prompted most Ukrainians to move to Romania.
But right in the first days of the war, rockets flew over Zaporizhia, right above my house.
Since we were sleeping in fear, under the sound of sirens, in the bathroom, on pillows, and on blankets, there was a very frightening feeling that when the siren sounded, something would hit exactly where you were. Sometimes when there is complete hell happening in Ukraine, I don't want to live anymore. I just want to go somewhere.
We also learn in the video which specific areas of Romania may indeed be dangerous.
Iasi is still a very dangerous city, and somewhere from there, someone shouted at me, "Hey you," and just took a bottle of beer and smashed it on the asphalt, then followed me.
In the end, I will find something amazing. In Iasi, I'm just in shock. It's just incredible. During the filming of this episode in Iasi from Chisinau, I took a relatively new train, which however broke down and was towed by an old Soviet diesel locomotive. A few hours and an inexpensive ticket, and I was in the European Union. These trains, by the way, are Soviet, but about 10 years ago, they were renovated right in Romania. They were completely updated, a coffee machine and a mini buffet were added, and it turned out to be quite comfortable. From the view out the window, it's hard to say that I'm entering the EU, but there it is, just behind that river. Iasi is a kind of gateway to Europe. It is only 100 kilometers from Chisinau, and essentially it is one of the largest cities in Romania. Walking through the outskirts, it seems Iasi is not much different from an average post-Soviet city. Gray streets surround, with leaning houses and ruins. When you enter the neighborhoods near the center, everything changes and it can be mistaken for a major European capital. Sometimes this even surprises newcomers.
I just arrived and looked up the best cities in Romania. There were a lot on the list, and Iasi was somewhere near the end. But I checked the map, and it takes an hour to get here from Botoșani. So we thought, well, an hour? And we came here just like that. We drive in, and right away there's the cultural palace on that side. Is this Romania? Is this even? And here we are in Iasi, and we started walking around, looking at things, and we met a boy from Moldova, and he told us everything, showed us around. Wow, what a cool city, really quite something.
And compared to Botoșani, it's like New York.
Of course, the metropolis.
In Iasi, great attention is paid to lawns. Despite the winter, live flowers can be seen everywhere.
What I really like is this green city, just like that. The bushes are all trimmed green, there are a lot of trees and a lot of plants. The center constantly changes some flowers and some bushes.
This is Elena. Like many of the heroes in this issue, she left Ukraine due to the war. Tell us how you arrived in Iasi and why you chose this place.
Well, it's an interesting story. We actually lived in Albania for 6 months. From March to the end of July. And then I traveled to Ukraine. My starting point from Romania was Botoșani. I spent the night in Botoșani and then left. My husband stayed in Botoșani. And when we returned, when I was there and he was here, he said, "These are ours. These are ours."
Did you like Romania?
He liked it. After Albania, the food was different, the water was different, the air was different, the trees were different. Everything was different. There are bananas on the trees.
In 2022, about 100,000 Ukrainians moved to Romania, not counting those who went further west.
Sometimes I see more cars with our Novograd license plates in the flow of traffic than with Romanian ones.
As we heard, many Ukrainians have already left for Poland, and we understood that it would likely be difficult to find a place to live there and so on. So we initially decided to go to Bulgaria, and in the end we simply reached the border with Romania, through Moldova to Skuleni. We were met by volunteers here, and we initially just stayed to spend the night, at least to bathe for the first time in these 4 days, sleep in warmth, and so on. In general, we ended up staying and decided not to move anywhere else. And we did not regret it because we were in Bulgaria in the summer and heard that despite everything. Well, it seems that despite the benevolent attitude of the Bulgarian state, we felt that it was more comfortable in Romania.
Most of those who fled to Romania in an emergency had never been here before and knew very little about this country.
We learned Count Dracula lives.
Yes. Probably. The information they knew is about Count Dracula. Overall, we knew nothing, but it is actually a wonderful country, very beautiful, with stunning nature.
Romania is a real surprise for me. In general, I knew nothing about Romania before I came here. To be continued. Traditionally, Poland has been a great friend to Ukraine.
According to them, Romanians have a very positive attitude towards the influx of Ukrainians.
I have heard many positive reviews from local people. They say that Ukrainian women there are beautiful, pleasant, interesting, and educated. For some reason, I have heard this surprise many times from educated people. I don't know if they expected that everyone would come from uneducated, unclear backgrounds.
The proximity of the border allows Ukrainians to take a quick trip home, address pressing issues, and return.
Well, why Romania, by the way? Why Iasi, 200 kilometers in Ukraine? I needed to, so I went to Chernivtsi and took care of everything, and then I returned. It's very convenient.
But many came here only for the winter.
You live here in Iasi. Are you thinking that something has become boring or expensive, and should we move to another place to wait out all these events?
Well, as long as it's not winter, we definitely won't move because there's heating here. Why did we leave Albania? In Albania, everything is heated with air conditioners. And to spend the winter purely with air conditioners, well, we knew it would be cold. That's why we came here. And in the spring, maybe we can return to Albania.
There were rumors that there might be a winter and Ukrainians would have to pay something for increased gas and energy consumption, but it seems that nothing of the sort is happening yet.
You may have never heard of Iasi, but historically it is one of the most important cities in the region.
In general, Iasi is a very old city, and by the way, it was the medieval capital of Moldova. This is how you stroll around and can touch a medieval fortress or some old church.
By the way, this is not my first trip to Iasi, and I even found traces of one of my past shoots at one of the stops. I was very surprised.
I am just in shock. I accidentally stumbled upon my sticker. That is 5 years old.
Back then, we shot the Yasis and the project was called Took It and Went. We were slapping on stickers. It's crazy. Funny moments during trips happen often, but not everything makes it into the episodes, so be sure to follow my Instagram. I pin the coolest stuff in my highlights. Iasi has welcomed many Ukrainian migrants this year, but there are also those who emigrated here even before the war began. This is Alexandra. She is a professional handball player who decided to move to Romania for her career.
I have always wanted to leave and play European handball because unfortunately the level of handball in our country is very low. Well, there are certainly indeed a few more teams that undoubtedly really demonstrate great results. Halichanka, there is a team from Lviv. They play great and represent Ukraine on the European stage. Well, the Carpathians and Uzhhorod are playing in the championship in Hungary, but the others are not. So there is no desire to go there.
Despite the fact that Alexandra did not know Romanian, she still managed to integrate into the local community.
There are new people. Here, everything is new. And even the training system is different. They do things a bit differently. It all seemed overwhelming to me, but I quickly get used to things. So I feel that after a month, I somehow blended into the team, even without knowing the language. I was constantly being asked something during training. The coaches were also explaining things and I couldn't understand what they wanted from me. So I had to keep looking for ways to somehow
communicating. With coaches and colleagues, we really love sports here, almost to the point of fanaticism, just like everywhere in Europe. Football is the #1 sport here. There is also a football club in the city, and Polytechnic plays against Bucharest's Dynamo. These are the capital's fans who, it seems, haven't fought with anyone today. Not knowing the language, immigrants here mostly communicate among themselves, but gradually they are integrating into Romanian society.
I wouldn't say that we are in any way whatsoever excluded from the local community. No, we communicate very well with our Romanian neighbors. They come to visit us. Our children play together, go dancing together, and we invite each other to birthday parties. I do not feel isolated. I don't think we are just sitting here in our own Ukrainian circle and not communicating with anyone.
The language is hard.
How about somewhere in a store?
With a translator.
With the phone?
Yes, well, they start speaking in English. And by the way, this really surprises me. I didn't expect it. Everyone knows English. Unfortunately, I don't know it. So I stand there and still act as a translator. Well, you want to, when you're in this society, you want to somehow to make them happy by knowing some of their holidays. I was just recently thinking, what is all this Ozibuna, what is that?
The language itself is very difficult for Ukrainians, it doesn't resemble anything at all. But there are Latin words, many Latin words, and you try to catch the context a little bit through them.
Not knowing Romanian, knowledge of English can be helpful. Not everyone, but many Romanians understand it.
In fact, if you actually speak English, there is not much motivation to learn Romanian because it is everywhere here. Every person will respond to you in English, even the security guard in the supermarket or cart pushers. But in Ukraine, that would be unthinkable.
Despite the fact that the locals here only know Romanian or English, Russian speech can be heard quite often on the streets.
Do you often hear Russian and Ukrainian speech while walking around?
Ukrainian, for example. More often Russian.
Because from the south of Ukraine,
there is Ukrainian, but here it's unclear if they're Ukrainians or Romanians.
In Romania, finding a job without knowing the language is difficult but possible. Anna is a photographer, and after the war, she had to find work in Iasi.
Messages about the filming came in Romanian and in English. I was sitting and thinking, my hands were shaking. I really didn't understand how to respond to them, how I was supposed to work. That's when I realized how I was going to work if I didn't know the language. I calmed down and thought, okay, I need to start slowly. I began to respond to people, at first spending an hour or two translating messages correctly with translators. Then it somehow started to develop, to evolve, and I did a lot of shoots in April. In May, I filmed my first wedding in Iasi. After this wedding, more projects started coming to me.
Moreover, despite the language barrier, many migrants here even managed to establish personal lives.
I also had a former boyfriend who was Romanian, so I had to speak with him only in Romanian. And I think it helped. So if someone decides to learn Romanian, the guys are helpful. I remember when I arrived in Romania, the girls helped me respond to messages. But if you really want to build a relationship and you don't know the language, questions may arise. You might be lucky if you both know English.
The Romanian language is quite complex for Slavs. It has many dialects and accents. Even Moldovans, for whom Romanian is essentially their native language, still stand out a bit from the locals here.
There is a Moldovan accent because not all Romanians understand, that is, they understand, but not everything we say. When I first came here, I had to repeat myself 3 to 4 times. I can't even imagine what it would have been like if I had gone further, because in Asluj we still understand each other. In Asluj and in Iasi, but I was further in the same club. There, people speak in a completely different way. They have a totally different accent, even different words. Back then, I didn't understand them. They could understand me to some extent, but I couldn't understand them. That is, they were saying, I don't know, I heard such words for the first time. It surprised me, it was actually Romanian.
In Romania, there are many free Romanian courses for refugees, but learning it is still not much easier.
It is clear that during this time we already know some basic phrases in the local language that we need, and we recognize some. Names from the signs in the supermarkets. By the way, today I have really set my mind to it, and this evening is the first online class of the Romanian language course.
Unlike adults, indeed, migrant children adapt more quickly to a new country.
My daughter is friends with the Romanian children next door, and I see that she is already saying many words there. I don't know how to say this in English, for example, but in Romanian it would be like this. I think she has adapted well. I mean, she does say that she wants to go home, but sometimes she thinks about it and says that it feels a bit sad to leave now, as she has made so many local friends.
Most Ukrainian children continue to study remotely from Ukraine, as there are no Ukrainian schools in Iasi.
There are no Ukrainian schools in Romania at all. There are schools with Ukrainian as the language of instruction. These schools are not in Iasi. They are schools in Suceava and Bucharest, but again, they are not Ukrainian schools, meaning they follow the Romanian curriculum, so the children study the geography of Romania, the history of Romania, but in the Ukrainian language.
Another advantage of Romania that Ukrainians often mention is the mentality. They say that it is an incredibly friendly people who adhere to family values and similar traditions.
I really like the responsiveness a lot. There was something when we arrived, I didn't know anything here, not where our people are or anything. I was told everything, where various events are held, where different courses take place. I even decided to attend a Romanian course, but I thought there would be someone who knows Russian or Ukrainian leading it, but no. They only knew Romanian and English. I sat down, I clicked around, and then I left. You gave up, right?
For me, it's really a great luck to be in Romania. I believe we are just lucky to be here. The biggest plus is the people. Absolutely open, perhaps even more open at times than in Ukraine, more relaxed, somewhat unpretentious. It is very easy to make contact, easy to communicate, and easy to approach a stranger.
Of course, the Romanians have many of their own peculiarities.
Sometimes, yes, it is felt, but not strongly, because after all, we are close. Ukraine and Romania are close to each other, so it seems to me that there are no radical changes as such. But still, in terms of mentality, I don't know. It seems to me that Romanians are a bit lazier than we are. And this sometimes even manifests during training or in character, perhaps, in some way. I don't know. Perhaps our tolerance for pain is somehow greater, because I notice this quite often. I don't know, I have a few jobs, for example, handball, online, and so on. They went to one training session and that's it, I can't, I'm tired. But it doesn't work that way for us.
Perhaps Romanians are not hardest working people in the world, but they certainly know how to relax and have fun. Anna, as a photographer, often works at events, but even she was surprised by how weddings are celebrated in Romania.
When I found myself at a Romanian wedding, I realized that I was truly there. Firstly, I was surprised that the team of videographers and photographers, were seated at a table. I thought about all the people. Is this a joke? Are we supposed to step aside or move our things somewhere? She says, no, Anya, we can sit here and eat just like everyone else. In Ukraine, 100 people is considered a very large wedding. Few people can afford such large weddings in our country. It is considered average to have up to 50 people, but weddings here usually have 100 or 150 guests. I was shocked by how energetic everyone was. All 150 people were dancing and having fun on the dance floor. This is the main difference from our weddings, which end at 11 p.m. with cutting the cake, and then everyone leaves. Here, the party only starts at 11 p.m., which surprised me a lot. People here are very religious, and it is essential for them to change on the wedding day. Religion holds a special place in the lives of Romanians, and in Iasi, there are more than 100 Orthodox churches. They are more religious than Ukrainians. We have one faith, but it is felt very strongly. We are very similar in worldview, lifestyle, attitude towards family and work, and probably because of this, you feel comfortable here. In any case, safety in Romania is not guaranteed everywhere.
Nicolae is from Moldova and lives in the city of Vaslui in Romania. It is not far from Iasi.
Vaslui is still a very dangerous city. There are groups that, well, at first I somehow understood each other. They didn't bother me, and I didn't bother them anymore. To keep them from bothering me, what could I do? They walk around in groups of about 20. I personally had a problem that I just didn't know. Somewhere in the 9th grade, I just didn't know. I was walking down one street, and from somewhere over there, someone called out to me, "Hey, you." And he just took a bottle of beer and smashed it on the asphalt, and then he came after me. At first, I turned around like he started to curse at me. At first, he turned around and said, "Who do you think you are, you filthy Romanian, that you insulted me?" He didn't like these words very much and started chasing after me.
Finding a job in Romania is not that difficult, but it is easier for representatives of certain professions than for others.
The first people who managed to settle here at all were, again, the volunteers who initially helped for free. Then they were invited by the same humanitarian organizations such as the Red Cross, the UN representation, and so on. They were hired by them. It was a great solution, I think, for these people, especially for those who are psychologists, teachers, and so on. They were able to find themselves here easily. IT specialists found their place easily. Again, someone was relocated here by their company. Someone else moved as a freelancer and found projects for themselves. And the most difficult situation is for people who have some qualifications in Ukraine. I have Ukrainian neighbors living with me. One is the director of a Ukrainian school, and the other is a teacher of Ukrainian history. It is clear that Romania cannot offer something interesting in terms of work for these people. Potentially, yes, these are the individuals who find it the hardest to settle here. For example, medical workers or accountants or someone else. This is a problem.
This is Natalia. She came from Kharkiv and is a doctor by profession. Strangely enough, it is indeed possible for a foreigner to find a job in such a challenging field.
In March, the government of Romania published a directive stating that Ukrainians, such as doctors, dentists, and other professionals, can work without diploma validation, provided they have notarized translations in various fields.
Ukrainian diplomas need to be translated into Romanian, and there should be confirmation from the employer that they have verified your qualifications and that you meet the skills and abilities required for your profession.
Still, most Ukrainians who came here, as they continue to work remotely.
Are you the editor-in-chief of a Ukrainian magazine?
Internet, yes. Internet, media, automotive, yes.
And what is it like to oversee the editorial team in Ukraine from Romania?
Under these circumstances, it's easier than it was there. I happened to arrive during the initial power outages. I remember the day I flew in when the most rockets were fired. We were also without power, and it was impossible to work. No light, no internet, no communication. Everything stops.
Did other employees also leave Ukraine?
Not all. Some are in the Kherson region and some are in Kiev.
Irina is an IT specialist. She does not have an office, so she works in a co-working space.
This is the Fab Lab co-working space, and there are 2 such co-working spaces in the city of Iasi. This is one of them. There are different subscription options. A day pass costs 15 euros if I'm not mistaken. A monthly pass is 180 euros. Well, there are discount options. If you pay for a year or half a year, the price is a little lower, slightly reduced. Workspaces are available. A conference room is accessible, along with tea, coffee, and great company. There are Ukrainian candies here. There are Russian candies in this co-working space.
Despite the fact that Romania is a European Union country, the living conditions here are similar to those in the CIS.
Here, when you rent a place, you at least have some basic things, which can include a wardrobe, refrigerator, bed, sofa, and chairs. If we compare it, for example, to Germany, I have a friend in Germany. He is a local resident. When I asked him, I said, "Lucas, can you tell me how much housing costs?" He gave me an approximate amount. I look, and there are just empty apartments. I started asking, "What about the furniture?" He says there is none. He says, "You can come with the furniture." I ask, "What do you mean with the furniture?" He replies, "Well, you buy everything yourself and bring your own." He says, "What about you? Isn't it like that in Ukraine?" I reply, "No, we rent everything out." I say, "They might even leave you an iron and dishes there." Therefore, I decided for myself that Germany is not an option. It's not exactly the best choice.
The rent for a studio is 500 euros per month, plus 20% tax, 19% taxes, and additionally for electricity. When I thought that she needed to be filmed, honestly, I don't know how I will cry for her in the future. I am ready to work for nothing just to at least pay for housing rent and the rent of a space.
Do the earnings you make from your remote work in Ukraine suffice for living here? And how do you compare that same amount of money in Ukraine and here? Where can you afford more with that sum?
Well, as it seemed to me again, I was comparing after Albania. In Albania, everything is very cheap, just very cheap. Here it is more expensive. And it seemed to me like in Ukraine, but even now I see that in Ukraine it is cheaper. Even now. Prices in Ukraine have risen significantly, but still when I go to the store there, I bought. I translate 10 euros here. I can't buy as much for 10 euros. So, although at first I thought the prices were very similar, well, some items like vegetables are probably the same. If you take some milk or meat, everything is more expensive here.
Romania is one of the cheapest countries in the EU, but for newcomers these prices seem inflated.
At first it was hard to get used to the prices because in Ukraine at that time everything seemed cheaper to me, and in Romania, I don't know, I looked and thought, damn, why is it so expensive? Well, regarding food, it seems to me that if we go to eat somewhere in a cafe, it turns out to be a bit more expensive here than in Ukraine.
The only thing that I noticed is expensive in Romania is the service industry, for example, beauty services. For instance, hair coloring can cost 200 to 300 euros, which is very expensive for Crimea and Ukraine in general. And things related to handmade items are also costly. For example, my daughter's birthday is coming up soon. I looked at the cakes that are handmade and so on. They are all much more expensive than in Ukraine.
Transportation and taxis are a bit more expensive, yes, although it seems to me that it's like in Kyiv, but more expensive than at home. Here. And as for the things, I think the prices are even better because it's Europe, so to speak. So it will be more affordable here. In my opinion, I think living here is quite normal. If the earnings are decent, then you can afford anything to live in this area.
Public transport in Iași is quite convenient. The city has these long trams that can accommodate everyone, even during rush hour. The ticket price is 2 lei. I often drive around Romania and it seems to me that they drive about the same way we do.
They drive better here. In Odessa, yes, in Odessa we have a very special way of driving, but still many Odessans say that driving here is bad, but taxi drivers drive poorly everywhere.
Perhaps Romanians drive even better, but they park haphazardly. Even a police car, which is supposed to issue fines for improper parking, is standing with 2 wheels on the curb. In general, the traffic police in Iași operate strangely. They don't always issue fines for parking, but I witnessed them stopping some poor guy on a scooter. What's a scooter compared to that? Here are the repressions regarding a horse-drawn cart. I would have liked to see how such transport gets towed to the impound lot, but I didn't get to witness it. It's great to try some new, delicious, exotic dish while on a tourist trip. But moving and losing access to your usual food is already a problem.
Their food is different from Ukrainian food. Here, people love sour flavors. They have some kind of brine. Borscht.
All the food is sour. They love sour and do not like sweet. This is different.
I don't know, it just depends on what area you're in. Somewhere they prepare something sweeter, maybe somewhere else it's different. I don't think I'm very picky about food. I liked the first time I tried. Kashkaval, which is fried cheese. It's a Bulgarian dish, I think. But I tried it for the first time in Romania, and it's very tasty.
They have very tasty potatoes. He just really loves potatoes, so here they are just incredibly delicious.
Why is there some real sweetness here? At first I only ate one potato.
I really like the food here, especially sarmale. Probably because I just love cabbage rolls or I miss them. But they are also a bit sour.
Due to the tastes of Romanians in Iași, it is impossible to find some products that Ukrainians are used to.
Many people indeed suffer for familiar food. For example, there is almost no black tea in Romania. It is a shortage.
People bring black tea from Ukraine. There are fans of buckwheat, herring. They try to bring something like that. They can't find it here.
At the border, take someone's shopping center and just to the tea department. There they will definitely stand and
Loose black tea, a classic choice.
just black tea. There are herbal ones. There are ones for weight loss. I don't know. In Ukraine, there are many types of tea, both brands and tea and everything like that.
Yes, that probably makes a difference.
Here, there's a lot of coffee.
There is indeed a lot of coffee here. Some brought it directly from Moldova.
They went there, buckwheat.
They went to Moldova for buckwheat, yes.
It's a true story.
Our friends certainly sent us, my colleagues more precisely, buckwheat and tea from Moldova.
But people from Moldova at local markets, they somehow got organized and started taking orders. What should be brought from Moldova to Ukrainians?
Who do you communicate with? There are many Ukrainians here.
Well, when we just arrived, we met with Moldovans. The whole circle was about communication, and we just got to know each other, the language. You start talking, they understand you, and you feel like cool.
Moldovans are the only ones who understand both Ukrainians and Romanians well, both in language and mentality, so they became a connecting link between them since the war began.
Since the war began, immigrants started coming here, and that's where we first met. I was a volunteer for some time, for a while.
Nikolai is a student from Moldova. In the early days of the war, he was a volunteer and helped Ukrainians fleeing to Romania.
They, of course, understood each other because Russian is not taught in Romania, and they called me because they knew I spoke Russian. And they asked me to just remain with them for a little while longer, to help them, because they had no one. Then acquaintances came also, Moldovans, 2 girls, and we helped them.
He says it was difficult as most of the volunteer work with refugees had to be done by Moldovans.
There were very many of them, that is for 3 people, so many people. I remember there was one time 150 people. It was very difficult. We had to run back and forth, return when there was food, or everyone had their own problems. How to connect to the internet. Where is the water? Where is the food? When will we be fed? I have a cat. Where can I buy a litter box? Where can we buy it? But we don't want to stay here. When will the train be? And I don't want to leave. And all that.
Ukrainians often prefer to use the service where Moldovans work, as it is easier to establish contact with them.
It's indeed difficult to find any service, because again there is a language barrier, even to repair a car there. There are also some here. Sometimes Moldovans who work can be found, but you still need to know and find out where they are located. The same applies to dentistry. So we found one dental clinic here, and also only Moldovans do not work there, so we went there. Not everyone knows all the words, not to mention with an accent. Sometimes they forget words. We had a case where we went to the dentist and a girl simply forgot the word for Tuesday. She said the day after Monday. This is just because they don't use Russian as often, apparently, since they live here in Romania.
After the start of the war, Moldova became a transit point for many Ukrainians, and refugees often recall the responsiveness of Moldovans.
We left on the 24th. We thought about going to Chisinau, to stop there. But a police officer stopped us at the border. They offered, saying, "Take some money to have for the first. Do you have lei, right?" We were like, "Well, we have money, everything is fine." He said, "Take some for the first time so you don't have to exchange, so you have lei for the first time." This was the first time in my life when I didn't offer money to a police officer, but he told me to take money. They took us and settled us right in a house. Basically, we are unknown people. We were just brought here. People came there, gave us the keys, relatives. They settled us in this house. Basically,
In everything. They're like the dishes.
in the morning, people unknown to us brought a whole bunch of food. They were young people.
They brought us essential food and hygiene items. They brought it. Unfortunately, there was no heating in the house, but we didn't complain. There was a warm enough blanket, and we were satisfied. But we said that there was no heating. After 10 minutes, they brought a radiator from somewhere. And it is very touching to tears because such an attitude essentially towards strangers who have arrived. Yes, we have grief in the country, but it was very unexpected and pleasant from both Moldova and Romania.
Many were preparing for the move in advance. The company where Ekaterina works managed to relocate employees from Ukraine even before the war began.
We were prepared. For this whole situation, we were prepared. Even before all the events that began on February 24th, in mid-December, the company insisted that we needed to leave, that there would be a situation where, in Ukraine, some unpleasant events and bad things would likely occur.
We stood at the border at Starokazachi for what indeed truly and undoubtedly felt like an eternity, for 15 long hours. I don't remember. For me, that time felt like 5 minutes, really. There was no feeling of, just leave me alone, just stand in the car for 15 hours. It's unimaginable. At that moment, I don't remember anything at all. I remember when we crossed the border into Moldova. There was such a relief. I just can't express it.
I brought part of my family here as well, my aunt and uncle. They are already retirees. They were left without a home that is from the Zaporizhia region. Their house was bombed. They came here, and for the first nights they kept waking up and getting up. They felt like there were explosions around.
For Anna, leaving was a difficult decision, as at that time her relatives and friends were in Ukraine.
I am in Odessa. My brother, who lives near a military unit, is in another city. I had a difficult choice ahead of me. Either leave with everyone now or just go to him, and most likely not return, because there were already bombings, already people. We were walking with suitcases, withdrawing money. It was already impossible to go back, and I called my aunt and grandmother, and they all told me to go home. For some reason, I was very afraid to go back, and I apologized to my brother, saying that
in financial terms, Romania certainly and effectively helps refugees, but there are some nuances.
Romania is one of those countries that does not give refugees cash directly, like they do in Germany and elsewhere. In other words, there are no such programs here, because many people who are interested in moving here all want to know what the benefits will be. There is no benefit. There are many humanitarian programs where people receive various types of assistance, such as those with children go to the office. For some backpacks, there are some food packages and other things like that. But there is nothing like giving you 300 euros in cash.
In more developed EU countries, benefits are much higher.
I hear that in Austria some benefits are 600 euros and other things. In this light, Romania does not seem so attractive. In general, this is not the most important thing. The main thing is that people here are friendly and welcoming. And for ourselves, we decided that this is more important.
As it turned out, dealing with documents in Romania is easier than in other EU countries.
To our surprise, we did not encounter any difficulties. Thank you. It is clear that we are in contact with many other refugees from Ukraine. We hear stories from Germany, France, Spain, the Netherlands, and so on. And everywhere, I hear that there are some nuances with document processing, some bureaucracy, something else. In Romania, everything is as simple and as fast as possible.
Because, for example, in some countries in Europe, you need to register through the tax office to somehow formalize it. In Romania, easier with this. In Romania, you simply receive temporary protection and you can stay here. In Germany, to obtain temporary protection, a process is required.
Yes, and some who submitted documents back in March or April are still waiting for those documents here. You simply go and arrange temporary protection within half an hour. With a Ukrainian passport, you can still travel, but only through the direct border, as far as I know. That people enter through the direct border, because if through Moldova, there is still a rule in Moldova that you need at least a foreign passport.
In Romania, Ukrainian citizens can certainly stay in refugee status, but obtaining citizenship here is very difficult.
Well, I don't know. The rules have changed now, and it seems to me that in Romania you now need to live for 10 years to obtain citizenship. It used to be 5, so if there is an opportunity, maybe I will think about the second citizenship, but for now I really value and love my own.
But no matter how comfortable the conditions are in another country, many Ukrainians want to return to their homeland.
I want to go back home, but in principle, this is the only direction I would choose. If I had to choose between Romania and some Western country, Germany or something else, no, I wouldn't leave here.
Do you allow for the possibility that the war will end, but you will still remain in Romania?
You know, I don't make predictions, but I really do indeed like this city. It reminds me a lot of our city in some way, I don't know, maybe in mentality and size. And here you feel comfortable and somewhat at home.
This was an episode about Iasi, a city that sheltered thousands of refugees. Although it may not have become home for many, it at least helped them be close to home. Subscribe to my YouTube and Instagram, there's a lot of interesting content ahead. Bye.